Good, how are you? Good.
Trust me.
You know who his father was?
Well, you know, we miss the boys. Hey, really? My fault. Reports from CME.
Good evening, everyone. The mask is because of allergies. I did not want to sneeze on anybody, so I'm taking the mask down, hoping I don't sneeze for at least the next 2 or 3 minutes. My name is Michael Young. I'm the chairman of the Sturbridge Republican Town Committee. We've chosen to sponsor what is a nonpartisan event tonight in the spirit of cooperation, which I think we need. This is not about all the things going on in the world in terms of international politics, national politics. It is just strictly about the town of Sturbridge, okay? Looking around the room, I probably know at least half the people in the room, and you know, I think that goes to show that we are local. So in any event, besides the 30 minutes of socialization that we've had, I'd like to welcome you, remind you that this is nonpartisan. Candidates will be allowed to come up and introduce themselves and speak. Gary Polonic will be the moderator. People who are running unopposed will have 3 or 4 minutes just to say, here's who I am, here's what I do, and here's what I want to do in the position I'm running for. You'll be able to ask some questions if you want to. People who are running with opposition will be given longer. They'll be given about 7 minutes to do their spiel. And then we'll move on from there with questions and so on and so forth. From the crowd I see in here, I know I don't even have to say this, but make it a point of asking good questions in a respectful manner, in a respectful tone of voice. Don't be accusatory, just be people, okay? And with that, I'll turn it over to Gary.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome again, and can I just get a show of hands, candidates that are here tonight? We're missing? Oh, okay. Well, we were going to go in order of the ballot, which starts with Board of Selectmen, but given that we don't currently have any selectmen here, Lorraine Herbert's running for assessor. We don't have Lorraine here. Richard Volpe, Board of Health, and this is on the town website if you haven't seen it. Constable David Covino. David, you're not here. Any library trustees? All right. Do we have this book till 8? I don't do a soft shoot, but yeah. The library trustees candidates are Melissa Earls, Joyce Sennett, and Shin Yi Kao. All right. I know there's some rec committee people here, and the rec committee is one of the 3 positions that is a contested election. Mary Lou Volpe, who I don't see, is a candidate for re-election, and she's not here, but Josh Matone is. So Josh, why don't you say a few words?
everybody, I'm Josh Catone. Some people here probably know me already, some people don't. This is the first time I've ever done this type of thing. I've stood up at a town meeting and talked, but I've never run for a position. So, saying that, I think seeing the disputes that we've had in the town meetings about the rec department, I think we need some. I think it needs some fresh blood, some fresh insight, and some a new direction maybe. Get things done. So that's what I'm here for.
Any questions for?
And maybe she wants to.
No.
We can go backwards. It's okay.
Back to the bus.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer. Or
I was wondering if there's any real targets right now for fields that you've identified, since we've had a few come and go over the last decade.
Not that I know of. What I would like to see from this, if I was to get on the rec committee, is to the thing that I always gather at these meetings is that people say, why don't we take care of what we have? So I think first step is probably trying to maybe get our fields in better condition first, then move along, and then try to propose to see, we can take care of what we have, let's see if we can get something down the road. I think that's what I would be looking towards. I think we also personally need a rec department itself to be excluded from the DPW. I think seeing them DPW guys get pulled away from what they really need to do and start taking care of, I see guys over in my neighborhood picking up trash when they should be fixing potholes or doing whatever else needs to be done. I think we need that department. So,
All right.
I have,
we have a young lady in the back that got her hand up quicker.
so what sort of other fresh insight do you think that you would bring to the rec committee, you know, especially to like the young kids too? What sort of insight would you bring as a candidate for that committee?
I think for the kids in this town, I think we need better parks and playground for them. The one I live on Cedar Pond Road. If anybody doesn't know where I live right by the town beach. I think the park there needs to be redone or just brought up to better standards for the kids in town to use. The other parks I think are in great spot, like the Burgess one. We don't really have too many other parks, do we? We have Burgess and that, right? I think that needs to be addressed down there because of all the rec stuff that happens down there. We have the summer camp that's down there. I think, you know, that spot is a great spot to have summer camps, and I think we need an expansion to make that a little bit a better location for that type of situation for the kids. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, as you mentioned, we need to improve what we have.
Yeah.
That deals with the kids.
Yeah.
Well, improving the field by the town highway department, we know is not a great field for the kids to play on. And from what I understand, it's going to cost a lot of money to improve that because of the topography there and
Right.
the problems with rain and weeds and flooding. So how are we going to improve on something that doesn't sound like it's
So
going to be
when I say improve on or maintain in a better manner is to take care of it better than what it's being taken care of now. I'm not saying that we're going to improve on, take that field, tear it apart, and make a new field. I'm saying we should at least take care of it better. Try to get rid of, you know, people complain about the bugs down there, or people complain about poison ivy down there, and they say that, you know, maybe the parking situation is not the best down there. Improving on that stuff. I'm not saying that I'm going to go down there and that should be, you know, that's where we're going to take and put a brand new field at this point. I think just improving on what we have and making each field a nicer location for them to play at.
Have you
Keep the grasses in a better condition, you know.
Have you investigated to see if it's possible to make that a better field?
Well, it's obvious that we,
Is
a
there,
few years ago, we had site plans built for down there to build a better location in this town that were approved, that got shot down at town meeting for money. That was the reason why it never got built down there, is because the people in the town spoke and said they didn't want it down there, or they wanted it down there, but they didn't want to spend the money to have it down there. That's from my understanding. That was years ago at the town bar.
We have 4 select people in the room that I think could probably
I don't know,
address
I
that
think
if
that
anybody
was,
wants to continue on that.
I don't wanna
Yeah.
put Lynn on the mark, but I know she was part of dealing with that down there.
So basically, as being rec director for 20 years, we did have some issues down at Town Barn with the ledge. And the original plan was for a baseball field down there only.
Yeah.
But then when we lost the Shepherd parcel, we desperately needed a soccer lacrosse field. So we had a multi-use field put out there. That came into the equation of the ledge, where there went the $1 million price tag and up.
Right.
And, you know, we had some issues going back and forth. When we first started, we had a company come in that was gonna take the ledge out for nothing.
Right.
There was $1 million price tag that went down to 0, but by the time we got, you know, going with that,
Right.
that price tag had gone up. You know, the main issue with the fields we have now, a lot of them are not even regulation size.
Right.
Which I think some of you guys can attest to, because you've had kids in the system.
Yep.
They're not regulation size, they would make for great practice fields.
Right.
And, you know, because they're overused for practice and for games, that's where we need quality fields for games and leave these fields that we have currently as practice fields. But,
So I think, not to get off the field subject, but I know that's the big topic with the rec department in town. But I think the rec department's bigger than just fields, right? There's more to it than just the fight that always comes about is the ball fields, and the ball fields, the ball fields. But from what you can see, there's more to it. Annie does a lot more. I think she needs more people behind her to help her do what she does. You know, she puts together the things on the common. She puts together, you know, different things all the time. So I think there's more to the rec department than just, I think people that are in town that hear about it at town meeting or whatever it is, they just think the rec department has to deal with just ball fields. And I think there's a bigger picture there. And I think she's got her hands full, and I think we need some fresh blood and some fresh ideas, and maybe I can be that guy.
Thanks, Josh, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Also running for rec committee, which is it's a 3-year term, by the way, is Jim Reseda.
How you doing? My name's Jim Rossell. I'm a lifetime resident of Sturbridge. I'm not used to anything like this, believe me. So believe me, right now, I'm pretty nervous.
Easy
So,
crowd.
like I said, my life, you know, my whole life in Sturbridge with the sports and the kids. And right now, I'm the longest member on the Sturbridge Little League. I've been there 22 years. I run the Legion baseball program. I've been the longest lieutenant coach there, and I run all that. And when it comes to fields, well, fields have always been a big issue with me. I've worked close with Lynn throughout her 20 years, trying to upgrade them, trying to get fields. And when you can't get them, you upgrade them, like the Turner's Field. At the moment, we got a new infield going in there in the next few weeks. I've worked on upgrading that field. Since we can't get newer fields, I said, well, we upgrade what we have. I work with the people with the bigger fields now. I've drifted away from like the Little League, the smaller fields, but running and maybe getting on the board will get me back to all the fields. And I've been involved in youth sports my whole life, and I'm just looking out for the youth in, in this town. That's why I've been on the Little League board for 22 years. My kids are in the 30s, I'm still doing it. You know what I mean? There's a reason for that, It's not, because my kid wants more playing time or anything like that. That's the issue I always run into, They say, how much playing time does your kid get? I say, you don't want to go there. And they say, really? I do. I said, no, you don't. Then I tell them, my kids are, at the time 20s and the 30s, and they said, why do you still do it? I said, well, I protect the kids. I try to protect the kids who just want to go out there and have fun, and you got to make a better atmosphere for them, because they're our future, the kids are our future. And so, you got to keep them out of trouble. My motto is, if they're playing baseball, they're not getting in trouble. You know what I mean? So, you got to get them with the, you got to get them a good field, you know what I mean? Or upgrade what you have, and right now, like I said, I've been working with Turners, and like Lynn will tell you, throughout the years, trying to keep that field as best as we possibly can, and it's getting better and better. Like I said, the next few weeks, we got a new infield going in there, and I believe we'll have dugouts this summer, and so, I don't know, like I said, I'm new with this, so I don't know what else to.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim? What do you think of the signing of Trevor Story?
What?
The second baseman for the Red Sox.
I didn't hear about it.
Oh.
All right,
Yeah.
I've got a question for you. So is your focus then on fields? Josh mentioned there's a lot of other things that he wants to focus on. You're really focused on improving the fields, or?
I know the fields are a big component of it, you know what I mean? I know there's anything to do, any recreational activities is the rec department. I understand that, and anything I can do to help out and make it better for the residents of Sturbridge. So.
All right. Thank you so much. Sturbridge School Committee is a 3-year term. There's 2 candidates for 2 positions. Jenna Ventitullo and Jackie Chichile, am I saying that right?
Cakeley is how you say Cakeley.
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 Wow, I would. So Jackie couldn't make it, but she did have a statement she wanted read in. She has another commitment tonight. So I'll read that and then we'll move on. My husband and I have lived in Sturbridge for almost 14 years. We love this town and the community that we've formed through our years here. We have 2 children, a 10-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter who have both attended Burgess Elementary School since kindergarten. Starting when our children were first born, I became more active in the community and trying to give back. I joined the Moms Club of Sturbridge when my son was just 3 months old. I was a member for many years and ultimately took on the role of activities coordinator for several years. As my children got older and started preschool, I joined the board of the Sturbridge Cooperative Nursery as the treasurer for 3 years. In this capacity, I met many wonderful families and developed skills in creating budgets, tracking expenses, and working with a committee. Again, as my children aged, I took on new roles, this time with the Club Scout Pack 161. Busy lady. I've been a den leader for 5 years and have taken on the role of club master this year. These positions have allowed me to interact with children, meet families, and organize events which are family-friendly and engaging to children. In addition, I have taken every opportunity to support the Burgess community as a parent volunteer in several classrooms, as a chaperone for field trips, and as an active member of the PTO and an organizer for the Burgess Bear 5K. Some work experience that I'll just skip to because it's not even a contested election, but she took the time to write it. So let me just finish up with, I believe that both my personal and professional experiences will make me a good fit for the Sturbridge School Committee. I have a strong understanding of the day-to-day experiences at Burgess. In addition, I have a wide range of friends and acquaintances with children in the Sturbridge school system, which provides me with insights into the needs of students at Burgess Elementary School. I hope to have your vote during our elections on April 11th. That's from Jackie. All right, moving on to Sturbridge School Committee. There is this is a contested election. It's a one-year term, and can someone on the Board of Selectmen explain why that's a one-year term?
I can explain it if you want. So we had our chair, I'm Samantha Kavitsky, vice chair of the Sturbridge School Committee. Our former chair, Kate Roy, had resigned midterm. So we had a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen for applicants. And the applicants were voted on by the Burgess School Committee remaining members and the Board of Selectmen to fill out the remaining term of the year. And then that person or someone has to pull papers for the remainder of Kate Roy's term, which would have been another year from today. So there are, I believe, 2 candidates that pulled papers for this one-year term, both school committee positions.
Right, so I thought when you vote on fulfilling a term, it's the term.
No, it's till the next town election.
It's till the next election.
Oh, okay.
It's always been that way. And it's a joint vote between the committee in
Right,
this
right.
case.
Okay, well, that would be Whitney Goodwin and Lisa Munier, neither are here, so. Tantascwa School Committee, William Haggerty, who I had the pleasure of serving with during my 2 terms on Tantascwa School Committee, and Kristen Leo, neither are here. That's a 3-year term as well. And we're fortunate to have our town clerk with us tonight. Lynn, do you want to say a few words about your unopposed election?
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm your current town clerk, Lynn Gerard, and I've been working with the town for 25 years. I was first recreation coordinator and working part-time for the first 2 years, and then I became a 20-hour-a-week full-time or part-time rec coordinator, and from there I went to the Board of Health office also and worked part-time there for 8 years. Back in 2016, Lorraine Morowski left the position of town clerk. So to answer that question, Lorraine's term needed to be filled. So I was approached and appointed by the Board of Selectmen in 2016 in August, 2 weeks before the state primary, and early voting had been incorporated by the state. So basically I was taken in by this state and thrown into the fire, I want to say. Early voting was very successful in 2016, and I ran 2 successful elections in 16 with the November election going on also with early voting. Then in 2017, I was then elected to the town clerk's position, and I've been there for 2 terms, and this will be my 3rd term coming up. And in that time, I've received my certification for the Mass Municipal Clerks Association, and I also have incorporated the clickers, the electronic voting that we did at town meeting. I've also incorporated the poll pads that we do for check-in. And we run a very successful office. We do birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates. I also suggested evening hours for the town. I started Monday nights with the selectmen's meetings, and it's been very successful. We've changed now to Tuesday nights, and we have a lot of people that do come in on those evening nights to do their marriage intentions or get sworn in because they're working during the day. And I'm looking forward to your vote on April 11th.
You mentioned certification of signatures. That must be fun.
Yes.
Especially with your assistant told
Yes.
me the other day, sometimes you'll get like 400 sheets because multiple people will canvass the
Right.
state on behalf of, say,
Well, it was with the petition questions. We get 400 or 500 at a time.
what, like 2 on a sheet or
Or
you
2
know,
or, yeah, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so basically when we certify those elections, or even for your nomination papers, we go through those sheets, any blank spots we mark off in a red pen. Then we go to the name. If we can't read the name, we go to the address. If on that address, you say, you know, you have 2 people at 70 Cricket Drive, one says Mark Gerard and the other one says Martha Gerard. If I can't designate who has actually signed that petition or that nomination paper, we can't certify it. So it's really important that those signatures are legible.
A lot of work.
Is it also good to print your name
Yes,
next
you
to the
can
signature.
print that, you have the person print the name in that space.
I don't really have a question for Lynn, I just want to make, can I make a comment
Yeah,
too?
absolutely.
I just think that, you know, I was on the board in 2016 when we had to fill in the interim position. And I know there was discussion, oh, you know, she wasn't a town clerk before, whatever. She's done an outstanding job. And I can't say enough good things. And she's my go-to when I have questions. And the fact that she stays open late, there were so many residents that wanted that because people work. And she's done it. And she is like the face of Sturbridge as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
It's good to see pioneers stick together.
Yeah.
Still in the
Well,
minority.
there's always that,
All right,
but, no, it's true.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys, Z is the last letter in the alphabet, so I'm gonna circle back to the Board of Selectmen and welcome Mary Dowling, candidate for 3 years. This is a contested election between Mary and Sue Shea.
I can't believe I have to start by apologizing that I was 3 minutes late. I thought the meet and greet was 6:30 to 7, and then 7 o'clock was started. I'm parking in the garage, and my husband's like, "Where are you? They just called you." So I apologize to everybody. I just want to start by thanking the RTC for having this tonight. Most of us know that the boards are non-partisan at the town level. And unlike the state and the federal level, so when we run, you won't see our party affiliation next to us. And I want to thank the RTC for recognizing that and giving us a forum to speak. I think that's great. If anybody's curious, I'm an independent. So anyways, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about my background because I know so many of you here, but I do have a website. It's marydowling2022.weebly.com, and I have flyers that reference my website. So I'll, distribute them to anybody that wants them. Our son Matthew did it for me. I'm technologically challenged in that respect, but I do have a website. So I want to start by saying, I had a resident email me and say, I don't know this person, by the way, totally new. What have you done for the town? What will you do for the town? And what's your position on the nation? I thought, third question is a big one. So that made me reflect a little bit. So what have I done for the town? What will I do for the town? Because I've been serving since 2010. And really, I try to serve with integrity at every meeting. I try to do my homework. I try to ask the right questions. I don't rubber stamp documents that are just put before us for signature. I try to treat people in like situations the same, consistently, fairly when they come before us, whether it's for a water abatement or any other issue that they're coming before. I try to, basically do my due diligence. And I think that's probably the most important thing because issues before the town are going to change all the time. You can't run with an agenda for one thing. You got to run ready to serve the town regardless of what comes up. And I tried my best to do that, to do my homework. During the pandemic, I tried to be a responsible leader, guided by science. I advocated for the purchase, for example, of free test kits for residents, and the board unanimously also agreed with that, so we bought 10,000 free test kits for distribution because they were short on supply at CVS. We required mask mandates when the numbers went up, the same for town meetings, so I've tried to be proactive in that way. And really, I try my best to represent residents. When they have a concern or their neighborhood has a concern, I try to be their voice. I try to advocate for them to the extent that I can. So those are the really big things that I'd like to cover. And I just want to say we've recovered very well from the pandemic. Sturbridge is rebounding beautifully. And I think that's a testament to the people who volunteer. According to our economic development coordinator, our numbers for the hotel and meals are at their pre-pandemic level. And in fact, in the fall, based on our meals tax, we're exceeding by 20% the preceding 3 years for that same time period. So people love to come to Sturbridge. They love to dine here, and they're doing something right. On a personal level, I try to support local business as much as I can. I shop here, we dine here, we do everything in Sturbridge to the extent we can. My husband's self-employed, so I'm in tune to the needs of the business community and the challenges that they face. I think the single best thing we can do for them is a single tax rate, which I have consistently voted in favor of from the beginning. And there was a time when previous boards split the rate. And I think it was Mary and I that were in the minority with the single rate. But we've been at that for a while. For tax incentive financing for expanding in new businesses. So I try to do my best for the business community as well. I consider myself an energetic person. I try to be upbeat. And so in terms of that, God willing, I have a lot of energy. So I advocated for special events in town. So I'm the Board of Selectmen representative on the Special Events Committee. That was the brainstorm for the farmers market, Lisa Bowden in particular. But we oversee the market in terms of their expenditures, which vendors they approve. They do all the work. But we also brought Home of the Brave road race to town, and now we've made it an annual event. It raised $6,000 for veterans, so we're very excited about that. I want to see more events for Sturbridge, so I consider that a very positive thing. I'm also the ARPA representative. That's the last round of federal funding that we got for the pandemic, and they're charged with making recommendations to our Board of Selectmen in terms of how to spend that money. I advocated for a survey to be put online so residents could provide input. I saw that on the news that a number of other communities were doing it, and the board agreed, so a survey went online for some input. We're going to be giving recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. One recommendation that we're giving, and I don't know how the board will feel, but Burgess came forward with wanting to put new infields on their 4 fields. For a very reasonable amount of money. It's a very small portion of our ARPA money, and the ARPA committee is recommending to the board $75,000, and all 4 infields will be done. And that was a very small percentage. We got $2.8 million in ARPA funds, and we will be getting the other we've got 1.4, we'll be getting the other 1.4 in the fall. Last year we needed 600,000 of that for the budget. But this year, the budget has been balanced with no need for using any of the forthcoming 1.4 million, because that's how we've rebounded. So I'm also on the ARPA subcommittee, Special Events Committee. And then I just want to end by saying, not that it's relevant, but that third question that he asked, what do you think of the nation? So I'll just say this. I really do think, because the RTC is here, that at the state and federal level, the 2 major political parties have to do a much better job compromising, reaching common ground, and treating each other with more civility when it comes to areas of disagreement, because that's what's going to move the country forward. I think our little local Board of Selectmen and everybody that volunteers for boards, we do a very good job with that. Our current board is very diverse, okay? I used to be one of the youngest, now I'm not. But in terms of age, years of service on the board, gender, and also political parties. We've disagreed, we've debated, but we always treat each other with respect, and I think we're a really good example. So it would be an honor to continue serving with the current board, and it would be an honor if you continue to support me and vote for me on April 11th. If you like my flyer, I'd love to give it to you and distribute it. I'm not on Facebook, so if you're willing to put it on your Facebook, if you're supporting me, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. I was so happy I stayed with him 7 minutes.
You actually ran off here.
Well, I thought I had 7 minutes, and no, you can nail me now. I get it.
Yes, Mary, thank you for
Sure.
that. I had a couple of questions, because it's related not only to the select board, but I think to the folks who are looking for conservation, not conservation, but recreation, okay, ball fields. A couple things. Is the Board of Selectmen willing to take up the issue with the Conservation Commission with a number of projects they shoot down where ball fields could be built, and there are many of them, where the town purchases land and it just automatically becomes conservation land with walking trails without anybody saying, well, maybe we could take a corner of that, whatever you need, 5 acres, let's say, and put in a baseball field. What's the feeling on the Board of Selectmen about that? Going back to conservation and saying, hey, look, we need ball fields. The town just purchased 120 acres in this location. Why can't we take 5 and put in a ball field? I'd like to hear what your position would be on that in terms of cooperation in town, particularly as it concerns the Conservation Commission.
Am I limited on my time? No, okay, not that I'm gonna go on. No, thank you, I mean,
Limit it to 8 o'clock.
well, no, I only have 7 minutes on what I can say, so I talked really fast and I can slow it down a little bit. So I am also an advocate for recreation. Our son grew up in Sturbridge, played every sport possible. My husband coached. I think back in the day, it was the coaches, the Little League, that actually put in the new infield at Town Barn for $35,000 with funds that they raised. So I'm on board. I've been an advocate for a long time. I just want to touch on the conservation though a little bit, because I've been following this right along. We wanted, as a town, as a recreation committee, to put fields on the so-called Shepherd parcel, which for those of you who aren't familiar is on Route 15, and also at Town Barn. And Lynn, who was then the recreation, touched upon it. Multi-use in soccer was going to go at the Shepherd parcel, and at Town Barn was going to be the baseball field. Now, and I'll get into conservation in a minute as well, but they are not the ones that shot down that initial plan. And we had site plans for both of them. In fact, the year before, for the feasibility study, the CPA paid for one feasibility study. I don't know which one it was either Town Barn or the Shepherd, and the townspeople paid for the other one. So they were moving forward. That Shepherd parcel got voted down at town meeting, because what happened was, and I had detailed notes because I spoke strongly as an advocate at the time. What happened then is town council said, look, when the Shepherd parcel was purchased, the way the deed read was open space and conservation. Okay, that's the way the deed read. And I thought it was broad enough for both, because open space under the Community Preservation Act includes active recreation, which are ball fields, and passive recreation, which are like hiking. That's the buzzwords for the CPA.
For any CPA lands we bought.
Well, hold on, talking about Shepherd right now.
Okay.
Talking about Shepherd. That's how it read. Our own council, and you know, they're our council. I didn't agree with them at the time, but they're our town council. Said, let's clarify that deed and just read open space and remove open space and conservation to make it crystal clear that both active and passive could have gone on that land. So we went to the town for a deed clarification, not money. We went for a deed clarification to drop and conservation and to just put open space. And I want to say, I know this is getting taped, but it might have been 7 votes, 11 votes. It was a handful of votes that voted it down. People stood up and said, well, this is just the first step in something that we can't afford, which is additional ball fields. And we said, look, this is to clarify. It might not happen in a year, might not happen for 2 years, but we need it to just say open space according to town council. And by a handful of votes, it got voted down at town meeting. Now those are the residents who were going. At the time, our son was still using the field. That was really early on. He graduated from college now. And I get a lot of phone calls from residents, coaches, you know, parents saying, oh my gosh, we lost the Shepherd parcel. And I said, well, yes, because you've got to go to town meeting. Maybe they sent one parent, but not both. If both parents would have gone, that deed would have been clarified. Just like that, it would have been open space, and we would have been all set on the Shepherd parcel. And in fact, one of our residents had approached, was it the Shepherds, whoever we bought that land from with CPA money, and they said they would have been thrilled to have ball fields up there. Do you recall?
We have a letter from the Shepherds.
Thank you, I'm going back with my
Yes,
memory.
and they wrote to the recreation department
Correct,
saying
correct.
that they would be honored, and
Yeah.
we
So-
at the time was gonna say, we will even name the field out, you know, after the Shepherds.
Yes, so once,
Because
so
they're
it was
ball
all,
fields.
thank you, so it was always gonna be open space. The deed wasn't clarified, council thought we might have faced lawsuits by a few people in town who were, considered themselves conservationists. They're not involved with the town at all, they're not sitting on a town committee or anything. And the deed wasn't changed. And so the Shepherd parcel lost, and so once the town meeting said, no, we only wanted conservation, that's when the conservation restrictions got put on the Shepherd parcel. So, you know, with all due respect, the Conservation Commission, with respect to that parcel, was really not the one for the thumbs down. Let me just go through the other ones. That didn't happen. And so that's how we lost that. Town Barn, again, not a problem with conservation as far as that goes. That had ledge. And I believe we wanted to put one field on it, and it was gonna be 2 or 3 million at the time, okay? And some residents thought, well, a portion of that is ledge. Can't we find another piece of property that doesn't have ledge? Now, again, that was a very close vote, and it got voted down at town meeting because people thought 2 or 3 million is too expensive. So now we lost Shepherd, okay, and then the following year, they lost Town Barn because of ledge. Then there was a CPA purchase of land up by the Rod and Gun Club, the so-called, thank you, Plimpton property. And again, the Board of Selectmen had a portion of that land which were gonna be fields. Again, it wasn't conservation. This time, and the Rod and Gun Club wanted hunting on a portion of it, because they gave a contribution to that purchase as well, in addition to and they came before us, and in fact, again, I advocated for a bigger buffer. And I remember there were members of that were there saying, oh, we want, why do we have to have a bigger buffer with our hunting? I don't mean it in a bad way, but there's a certain state requirement for how many feet you need.
500
And
We had 250, and we upped it to 500.
yes, and again, I'll say that I advocated for that very strongly.
Yes, you did.
I wanted, and there were a lot of residents that were not happy with me because of the hunting aspect. But we doubled the buffer, 2 put fields there, 2 put fields. What happened is, according to our now current Annie Rossioli, now there's an endangered species that was found on the Plimpton property. Now, I'm sorry, I don't know what that endangered species is, but there are some. So the state shot that down for it. So it's been a series of things like that. As far as Cedar Street goes, again, that went to town meeting. So, conservation has their hands in things where there's wetlands and stuff, but all of these votes went to town meeting. So my answer to you, between the Shepherd parcel, Town Barn, Plimpton property, and Cedar Street, people found 5 million at town meeting,
A horse track.
just too expensive. I'm happy to answer the horse track. I was not.
No, there were fields proposed there as well.
They were, that were going to be paid for by the owners of the racetrack or equestrian center, however you want to term it. So all of those went to town meeting, and I think for those residents watching, if if you're a strong advocate for an additional field, then I think you really need to get your family to town meeting. Now, I will say this, I think the best thing right now is what the recreation is, I believe, going to focus on. I think they want a warrant article, and that is to the fields that we do have, to rehabilitate them, to bring them up to a better standard. So I think they are definitely going to focus on that. But the Recreation Committee, as we know, is an elected board. So it's really not up to the Board of Selectmen to say, hey, we think this land is a good piece of property. But now, they've got to go back and look again. Personally, I thought Town Barn was a really good spot for an additional field, but people didn't want the ledge. So I don't know what they're gonna do as far as that goes, but I do know all of those properties went to town meeting, and town meeting is the one that voted them down, so.
Just one question, real quick, and this could be just a yes or no. On the one hand, excuse me, we have a lot of dedicated public servants in the room. I have served on the zoning board of appeals. I found out quite surprisingly that it's already been 7 years that I've been sitting on that board. And I'm a big term limits guy, and I said, well, I've given 7 years, maybe I should, step aside and do something else or whatever. But the thought does occur to me, looking at a number of boards in town, that should there be term or service limits on these town boards, and I mean all of them, zoning board of appeals, board of health, conservation commission, finance committee, where at a certain point, say, okay, you've been sitting here for X number of years, and I don't know what the X should be. But basically, would you favor term limits on town board service?
Okay, well, I'll tell you how I feel, but obviously, since I'm running, the answer is no. But I'll tell you how I feel about term limits in general. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at the state level. I'm not a fan at the federal level. We have term limits for our president. And the reason is some of my favorite, you know, John McCain, one of my favorite senators, a war hero, right? If we would have had term limits, I wouldn't have liked that. Tip O'Neill, I know him with the RTC, but, you know, Senator Kennedy, a lot of the people on both sides that are the pioneers of service wouldn't be there if we had term limits. And I don't think local boards are any different. It's public service. I think it's up to residents. If you think we're doing a good job, continue to vote for us. If you don't think we're doing a good job, then you've got the ability at the ballot to say, we want change, you're not doing a good job. But I think it should be no different than it is at the state or federal level. And that's how I feel. I also think that, as I said before, our current board, we're pretty diverse. We have 2 people, it's a 5-person board. We have 2 people who are serving their very first term. We have a 3rd person serving his 2nd term, and then you have myself and our chair who have been there for longer terms. So we kind of run the gamut. They're not all new, but we're certainly not all ones that have served multiple times. And great, I think it's good that people want to run. I think that is a good thing. I think it's good, you know, it's unfortunate that you don't have both candidates here tonight, because I think the RTC was trying to extend to everybody, and it's unfortunate. I don't know why, you know, everybody isn't here. So no, I guess I'm not a big, I think it's not that democratic, to be honest with you. I think people are adults, and they know enough if they want change or not, so.
Tom, did you have one?
Yeah, just for a question, on the Shepherd, parcel, is that something that can be readdressed, or is that a dead subject?
Okay, so that was, you know, looked into, and it can be looked into again.
Okay.
I know it's much, and we've asked council about that.
Yeah.
It's much more difficult. Did you see the much?
Yeah.
From a legal standpoint, because unlike how it was before, based upon how town meeting voted, now there are what they call CRs, they're conservation restrictions. Very hard to lift legally at the state level. The state had made clear that if we try, they will object to it. And so it would be, we'd face we'd have to spend money on that. It would be a financial and legal battle, because they made clear. Now, this is what our former town administrator said, and that's pretty much why there was a push to have the senior center on the Shepherd parcel as well, okay? And that's how this all came to fruition again. And our former town administrator looked into it, and then we kind of dropped the Shepherd idea for a senior center. I like where the senior center is, by the way, but that was the 3rd location. Cedar Street, the Shepherd parcel, or where it is with the major renovation and addition. And the state's position, because that was bought with CPA funds, that's Community Preservation Act funds. That's how the Shepherd parcel was purchased. It wasn't purchased with regular free cash. And that's, the CPA earmarks active or passive recreation, affordable housing, and historic preservation. Those are the 3 things under the state law. And now with the CRs on it, the state said you bought it with CPA money. So there is a way to remove it. There is. But we would face a major legal battle, I think. So that was one of the reasons when it came down to the 3 places for the senior center, where we are at the 2 other places. The 3rd place was really not pursued that much, because it would have cost the town some money. And from my perspective, now that the conservation restrictions are there, I think the town has spoken on that, you know? I think the time came and went, personally.
Yeah, can the town have a special committee for like parks and, I mean, instead of just doing parks and recs, do a fields committee?
Absolutely.
I think that'd be great for the town, like as a young parent. Like,
Yeah.
This is my thing with the town, we don't have any ball fields at all.
I know.
And it's a draw to young families to get people here and staying here and planted here instead of moving elsewhere. Because it's happening, people are getting sick of the,
Yeah.
oh, conservation doesn't want this, conservation doesn't want that, and, you know, and it comes to a vote and we get turned down. It's really
It's frustrating.
disheartening as a young family
Yeah.
in this town not to have that. And
It's
so
been-
it'd be nice to have a special committee that can work on it, find places in town that might work, and then bring it and make it, advertise it to the town instead of it just being an afterthought.
I had Yes, I don't disagree. I had a resident, few residents that have been very involved, like point to some parcels of land that they thought would be good. And I brought it to the recreation director and said, you know, what about this parcel, what about this, as suggestions. But the best thing is really to turn to the recreation committee, which is an elected board. You know, it's also important, like, we don't, as a board of selectmen, we're separately elected, and recreation committee is separately elected. So we can't take over for them. You're going to elect them. But I think, approach the recreation director and the chair of the recreation committee, and I think they may, well, I can't speak for them, but if I were on the committee, okay, I would welcome it to have a committee of parents that want to go out and look for more land and get more involved. I can't imagine that they would turn something like that down. And again, like, I met with Annie about a month ago because somebody who's a realtor said to me, Mary, there's this land and this land. And in that interim, one parcel sold, but there was another parcel. So I brought it forward. I mean, you know, and I think, go to them and say, look, we'd like to do it. But honestly, the best thing that you can do as a young parent is rally your friends and neighbors and attend town meetings when something is on the warrant. For example, I think they are going to try to put something on the warrant to do a soil sample study to start working on improving the conditions of the existing fields, because that was a big criticism at town meeting. You know, like, why are you trying to buy another piece of land, build a field when we're not taking good care of what we have? So there is gonna be that on the town. So it's not enough if you go to the meeting, right? You gotta get your wife, you gotta get your family. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's a fabulous idea. When our son played travel soccer, we didn't have a travel soccer field. I remember Lynn was the one who was the recreation director at the time. And we used to be in Wales at the elementary school. And I remember one time, I think we were playing Charlton, because the boys were in like a U12 league or something. It was in like 8th grade. And they said, is this your field? And we're like, yeah, we use Wales Elementary School. It was bizarre. And they had a game, we had to forfeit it because the girls were afraid the boys were gonna kick the ball too hard or whatever, I don't know. But it got forfeited. So this has been an ongoing thing. But it also has to be affordable. Like, the townspeople have to feel like they can afford it. So, you know, it is a challenge. I will say that I was an advocate for that particular position, the recreation director's position, to become full-time. I pushed really hard for that too, because I thought it was ridiculous that recreation director was a part-time position. And I pushed for recognition as a department head, you know, because for a while, as Lynn pointed out, it was a 20-hour job, right? So I'm on board, I get it, but you really have to talk to the recreation committee, not the board.
Anyone else?
Russ?
Maybe I'd like to switch gears a little bit away from rec. Correct me if I'm wrong, several years ago, the town embarked on a needs assessment of all the departments. And I know for a fact that the highway department's busting at the seams, the police department's busting at the seams. The fire department has emergency equipment stored outside because they don't have enough room. Same thing with the highway. Where do we stand with that? I mean, there's,
Well, we took,
wasn't there a needs assessment done of all the departments?
there was a feasibility, not a feasibility. Ty and Bond did a very, I wanna say a preliminary kind of needs assessment. And you're right, I think actually the DPW came out the most needy. Am I wrong, Mary?
No, DPW and then the safety complex and then
Yeah.
the senior.
You know, we've tried, so
It was in the
I get it.
It was
I
a
mean,
subcommittee of the master plan.
It was a subcommittee of the master plan. The senior center is the one that the town's embraced at this point, but I think that that is definitely, you know, going to be on, and Butch has tried to, he's done remarkable things with his office, but you're right, I mean, those two things do need to be addressed. We moved forward with the senior center, and the other one is, I think the DPW is probably in worse condition. But you know, we did try to sell or long-term lease the fire station, the old fire station on the corner of 148. You know, I would be in favor of, you know, and I know it wasn't embraced at town meeting, people were hanging on to it. But that would be a good one, you know, to sell, and maybe with the revenue from that, we can rehabilitate our current safety complex or the DPW, because that's just sitting there now. It used to be Mass Motion. It's falling into more and more disrepair. It's an eyesore. I am not in favor of keeping it, you know, for more offices or ever. We're gonna have to make do with, you know, we have a beautiful town hall and center office building, and I'm happy with that. And I'm not in favor of, you know, another building for storage or any of that. We're gonna have to find like more creative ways for our storage through the computer and clouds or whatever. But, you know, that would be one example, right, that I think we could move as a town to sell that property and maybe utilize that money for our fire department that we're.
So while we're on that subject, you don't foresee in the future that we would ever need a Station 2?
You know, that's something that is probably beyond my expertise standing up here right now.
And the only reason I bring that up is, and Charlie can correct me if I'm wrong, the plan for Route 20 is 2 12-foot lanes from Cedar Street all the way to Fiskdale, with a center strip with trees, and we saw a proposal at the planning board, am I right or wrong?
You're right,
So, at the current situation we're in now, you got a 12-foot lane, please tell me where you're gonna get an ambulance and a fire truck through a 12-foot lane with cars backed up on Thursday and Friday afternoon
Yeah.
to Fiskdale. You know,
It's not something that
I think it's
just
something, before you
contemplated,
think
to be honest.
about selling that piece of property, you gotta put that in the back of your mind about having a Station 2.
Now, this is, you know, I take you at, you know, you've got the experience in that area, not me. But it's not anything that has come forward to us by our fire chief or anybody, or the department, you know, so I'm not saying it's not food for thought, but like right here, standing up here, I don't have a position on it, I've gotta be honest with you. But it's definitely something that, you know, discuss it with the fire chief in terms of need. I don't know the answer to that. I did check with Butch, and the state is moving forward, you know, to address the traffic concern. I just spoke with him about an hour ago, because I wanted to make sure if that question came up, I was prepared. And they're already starting their survey lines and that type of thing, to start with something where the Route 20 and 131 meet, for a rotary, and it looks like he was saying 2026 is what was targeted. So you're right, I mean, it's something to think about. I think you should start with, you know, the fire department, who are the expertise in that area.
He probably doesn't even know that plan's in place, you know.
Say it again?
I'm guessing he probably doesn't even know the plan's in place for a 12-foot lane.
The fire
Fire chief, yeah, because he hasn't been here that long with
Right.
that. That was, how many years ago, Charlie? It was 5 or 6 years ago.
You know, one more from Mary that Chase, got the ZBA.
Oh, I can't believe I haven't. Go ahead, that's okay.
Mary, we've sat together now for 4 years,
Right.
and we don't always agree, but we always get along outside of the meeting, and I appreciate that. What do you feel is the biggest issue facing Sturbridge right now?
And Chase, I agree. Thank you. So the biggest issue facing Sturbridge, you know, all towns have issues, right? So on my website, you know, I always say it's a balance. I think it's always how many taxes are you willing to spend for the level of services that you want? It's always gonna be the trade-off that everybody has to decide at town meeting. We all want a lot of things, but then we don't want our taxes to go up. So the challenge is going to be to keep taxes, you know, now we're at what, 1915, 1912? We held the rate constant in 2021. So I think, you know, there's more and more residents who are very concerned, you know, with their taxes. But yet we do have, you know, we hear that the DPW building is in a state of disrepair. You know, we want fields because there's a shortage there. So I think that's the trade-off, but everybody has to make their own value judgment on that. And then I think the other big thing that sometimes divides Sturbridge is how much growth do you want versus quality of life? You can't have both. That's why I always consider myself a moderate. You want sustainable growth. You don't want growth of any kind. You want growth with good jobs. You know, you don't, but then you also want to make sure you have quality of life and you're not going to become, you know, Shrewsbury, because people are already complaining about the amount of traffic in Sturbridge at rush hour on Route 20. And people say, look, we moved to Sturbridge for a reason. We don't want to be in a Worcester suburb or a Boston suburb. So I think those are the two things. Level of taxes, level of services versus how high do you want your tax rate to go, and quality of life, and growth. And that's why I said we have to compromise. I don't think everybody's gonna get exactly what they want. They have to try to kind of meet in the middle. So that's what I would say on that.
Thank you, Mary, appreciate it.
Sorry.
Last but not least, the zoning board of appeals. I have some experience here, served with Mr. Chamberlain back in, how long ago was that?
Not zoning board of appeals,
Oh, that's right.
planning board.
You know, you can yawn your way through 7 consecutive ZBA meetings with, you know, shed setbacks, and then all of a sudden you'll have a sign bylaw where we gave the town 5 years, the businesses to conform to what I would say is a good but restrictive sign bylaw, and everybody ignored it for 4.5 years. Now, you know, and then we went from 1 Wednesday a month to, I don't know, Mike wasn't on the board at the time. I think we met, you know, 3 Wednesdays for like 6 consecutive months, just to pick them off one after another after another. So, you know, it's more important, I think, sometimes that people give it credit for in terms of the nature of some of the decisions that come before them. So we have 2 candidates for 2 spots, 3-year term. We'll start with the candidate for re-election, Fidelis Omoboy. Hi, Mia. Sorry, I thought you would. My glass. Thank you, Fidelis. Getting old. It's close, not far.
All right, Fidelis Omoboike. Been a resident of Sturbridge for almost 20 years now. My kids have all schooled here. Well, I still have one in high school. 4 of them, 3 of them are off. And I'm a candidate for re-election on the ZBA. I think I've been on the ZBA for 3 or 4 years. And well, the reason why I got on the board to start with was, you know, like I said, being a resident of Sturbridge, I thought it made sense to contribute, you know, to be a part of what goes on here, to serve the community. And I felt, well, you know, the ZBA will be a good entrance, you know, will be a good way to, you know, actually be a part of and, you know, hopefully make some positive impact. So I'll be, you know, asking for your vote for another 3-year term. Thank you.
Any questions for Fidelis? Anything exciting coming up? Like sign bylaw?
There's always something exciting.
Sometimes you hear it before anybody because it, you know, depending on the order, you know, well, you gotta go to conservation, planning, and zoning. What's the easiest one? Well, go to zoning first.
Yeah, it depends on the case because there's nothing that is the right reason. You know, like you said, you could have, you know, so many quiet. Like when I joined the ZBA, I fell right into the 40B, you know, and that was just the basic. That was baptism of fire. It was super exciting, and you know, but you know, like I said, we're here to make sure that the residents get a good shape, right? They get a fair hearing. You know, of course, if you don't know what the ZBA is, essentially you come before the ZBA if you've been referred by, you know, planning board, you know, or
Building
zoning, building inspector. If you go there and there's something, you know, about your building or something about your project that kind of goes against or is outside of the zoning, then you appear before the ZBA and you make your case, right? You present your project and we deliberate and discuss and vote. A lot of times it's, you know, we vote up. A few times some things that make sense, you know, but a lot of times, you know, people do get to do those minor renovations or those improvements that they want to do on their property. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. And finally, Thomas Welch, running for ZBA.
How you doing, everyone? Tom Welch, I've lived in Sturbridge for about 5 years now. The reason I'm doing the ZBA is basically I just want to bring some young blood to the position. I know that, you know, there's different age groups throughout this room right now, but there's not many younger individuals, and no offense to anyone in the room, but.
I feel it.
Yeah, so, I'm trying to get a little bit under 40, so we got a couple 40-year-olds in there and such, but I'm just hopefully here to bring some younger blood to the town and hopefully make some good changes and see what happens from there. But I'm just looking to start my public service, I guess. So I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, you might have a question?
Oh, I don't want questions.
I have one for him.
Oh, thanks.
She wants to know.
Oh, you know, I wanna know how old you are.
I'm 38, but my hairline says I'm 50. Anybody else?
I'm sorry?
I said late arrival.
Yeah. Did I read her statement?
No, that was Jackie. This
Okay, I
is
didn't read.
Jenna.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hi.
All right. Well,
Sorry I'm late.
you're gonna get to drop the mic.
Wait for my husband to come home, so, my name is Jenna Ventitullo. I'm running for the school committee at Burgess. Public speaking is not my strong suit, so I apologize that I do not feel as comfortable up here as Mary does, or some of the others, but I'll do my best. So I've lived in Sturbridge for 6.5 years. I have 2 young boys, 6 and 7. They both actually started with Miss Becky at Treetops when my oldest was 3. I have a career in law enforcement, and then I switched over to nursing. I'm now an ER nurse, and I recently took a job as an elementary school nurse at North Brookfield. So I'm also a member of the Tantasco board for the lacrosse team. So I have a big interest in fields, especially since the lacrosse team just got permission from the high school to start practicing this week. So I definitely have an interest in that and the well-being of the fields at Burgess Elementary. So if anyone has any questions, I would love to answer them.
Can they use the turf field?
They can now. They had to, I think they got cleared this week. They had to wait for permission from the town, so, or from the high school.
That was $2 million well spent, but we got to spread that over 5 towns, so.
I thought the school choice kids paid for that, right?
I think so.
Well, that's how we justified it, you know. That's a wonderful pool of money. Balances it.
There's some that might be.
I tried to get the table 3 guys to pay for the whole thing, and name it, you know, Ryan Field, but that didn't go so well.
I have a question.
Sure.
What do you see as some of the issues that you're facing, the school committee will be facing regarding our children's education?
I think one of the biggest issues, especially my kids are in kindergarten and 2nd grade, is that with school closing down for a few weeks and then going remote and distance learning, kids are really far behind. They're far behind socially, they're far behind academically, and I think it's our job to make sure we figure out how to get them caught up. Whether it's extra help after school, hiring more teachers, focusing on their reading and math, I think focusing on their social development right now, because I know my son is in kindergarten and he's having issues with kids who have never been in a group situation before, and they're acting out and they're behaving in ways that aren't appropriate. So I think we just have to focus on getting back to the basics and kind of normalizing things for kids again.
Does the committee have do you have a game plan in order to achieve those goals?
We've talked about hiring teachers to focus on the after. Parents were just allowed and visitors were just allowed to come back into the school recently. So there wasn't a lot of extra opportunity for kids to get the help that they needed. So they've started extending hours for that, and kids can get extra tutoring. We did use some ESSER funds to hire short-term teachers, and we're trying to work some of those contracts into a long-term budget. We have a lot of English as second language learners. I think, what did they say, Sam? We have 25 or 26 languages or something?
It's up there.
So we've talked about interpreter services and trying to make sure their needs are met. So we're just trying to figure out what teachers are needed where, and where to distribute everything.
Regarding curriculum, with curriculum that, you see as a problem, is changing, or needs added to, or?
I think there needs to be transparency in the curriculum. I think parents need to know what their kids are being taught. I know there's a lot in the news about CRT and diversity and equity, and so as a parent, especially, I want to know what's going on in the classroom. I don't want anything to be hidden. I want it to be completely transparent. So I think we just need to establish those expectations with teachers. And I know that recently someone had asked about library books in the library, and we were just informed that there is a central, like a directory of books, so we can see what kids are actually exposed to, yeah.
All right, thanks, Jenna. I think that's gonna close it out.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It's really important. It means a lot to me personally, very much so. And it means a lot to everybody on our town committee. We don't bite. I hope it's been fair for everyone tonight. You're free to hang around for a while. I think we have more water and soda and bags of chips than we really need. So if you'd like to talk one-on-one with anybody for a while, please feel free to do so. We have the room until 8:30, but if everybody clears out before then we will clear out. Yes.
Mike, I just want to make one announcement that don't forget April 11th, Monday, is our town election. The polling location is at the town hall, and we're open at 6:30 a.m. till 8 p.m.
Glad you brought that up. What are the prospects for future voting locations as we back down?
It's like fields. That's all I'm gonna say.
Clear as mud.
Okay, once again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You go now.